Half a day. Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here with us today. It is February 2nd, 2026. This afternoon's oversight hearing was held by the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal and Foreign Affairs. Is hereby called to order. It is now 2:02 p.m. Before I begin, I would like to go over a few housekeeping matters so we can get right to work. First notice of this this oversight hearing was disseminated to all senators and media outlets on January 26, 2026, and the second notice was disseminated on January 29, 2026. These hearing notices, accompanied by the agenda, were also made available to local media, the Guam Legislature's website, our legislative calendar, and the Government of Guam's public notice portal. They will also be appended to the committee report along with testimony and presentation provided. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Guam's legislature's YouTube channel, and the transcript will be filed with the Committee on Rules and made available to the public. Today, our committee will hear from a critical agency central to Guam's border security, the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency. At this time, I would like to recognize and welcome my colleagues who are joining us this afternoon. Of course, the Vice Chair of the Committee, Senator Chris Duenas, thank you for joining us. Senator Gumatauto, thank you for joining us. Committee Member, Senator Teresa Lai, thank you for joining us. And Vice Speaker Tony Ada, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Yes, okay. Before I proceed, I would like to remind everyone in attendance of the Estatutos Guajan's general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chairperson before speaking and shall state their full name and title for the record. Questions, testimony must remain confined to the substance or nature of today's agenda. Personal inferences to the character or motive of any senator or testifier are not permitted. Pursuant to Section 101.07 of 38th Guam Legislative Standing Rules, the chairperson may order the removal from this hearing room of any person who fails to observe proper decorum. Any violation of this rule will result in immediate removal from the public hearing room. Before we call the first witness, I want to set the stage again for today's hearing. Let me be clear that about why we're here today. Guam Customs and Quarantine is not just another agency. It is our front line, protecting our borders, intercepting illegal drugs and contraband, enforcing quarantine protections that keeps our island safe, and keeping lawful trade moving so our shelves are stocked and our economy can function. We are here for a frank, honest discussion about performance, priorities, and accountability, because when it comes to border security and public safety, we cannot afford wishful thinking or paperwork solutions. In terms of objectives and scope, this hearing will cover a review of current CQA operations and service delivery, what is working and what is not, and where the bottlenecks are occurring at the seaport, the airport, and the mail facilities. The status of modernization efforts, including staffing and training, because we cannot fight today's threats with yesterday's tools, and we cannot expect results without investing in people and systems. Recruitment and retention of officers and key personnel, because you can't run a serious border security operation with vacancies, inadequate training pipelines, or burnouts. The last CQA graduation cycle, I was kind of blown away that someone who was just graduating that day was leaving the agency the following week for CBP. Preparation for performance-based budgeting, because this legislature is moving forward toward budgeting that is tied to measurable outputs and outcomes, not just line items. CQA's work is measurable. Clearance times, inspection coverage, seizure metrics, quarantine interceptions, compliance actions, and revenue protections. We will discuss FY 2024 and FY 2025 lapses and expenditure planning, as well as procurement challenges impacting operations, equipment, and modernization timelines. Because an island, procurement delays do not just create inconvenience, they create vulnerability. We will examine interagency coordination with the Port Authority of Guam, the Guam International Airport Authority, the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and federal partners, because customs does not operate in a vacuum. When coordination fails, operations fail. And finally, we'll discuss trade facilitation, enforcement priorities, and risk management practices, including revenue protection, compliance, and inspection protocols, impacting cargo, passengers, and mail, because we need a system that is tough on threats, but efficient for lawful commerce. Now, before we begin witness testimony, I want to put something on the record. In preparation for this afternoon's hearing, just this morning, as a matter of fact, so the latest information that we've got, I met with the Office of Finance and Budget. They verified the following lapse balances for CQA based on the CRER from BBMR and DOA, the administration. This is not our findings. This is what's given to us by the CRER. Your FY 2024 general fund lapse is $2.2 million. FY 2024 special fund lapse, $600,000. FY 2025 general fund lapse, approximately $2.9 million. FY 2025 general fund lapse, or special fund lapse, approximately $1.8 million. And when you add those up, the reality is that we are looking at lapses that exceed $7.5 million over the last 2 fiscal years. And according to the December 2025 Consolidated Revenue and Expenditure Report, CRER, CQA is projected to lapse again, about $3.9 million, taking us up from $7.5 million to $11.4 million. This is not a small accounting issue. This is a public safety issue. That is a border security issue. That is an operational readiness issue. I want to thank, of course, Senator Chris Duenas, the OFB Chairman, Mr. Steve Guerrero from OFB, for the research and verification that helped inform us today for today's hearing. I also want to thank Senator Shanga Matalto for bringing this issue to my attention a couple weeks ago. And intense research was done since then. Because we want to protect our community and we want to fight drugs. This cannot happen in a silo. This must be a whole of government approach. This is what this legislature is trying to do. Now, I want to speak directly and respect to the men and women of Customs and Quarantine. To every officer who wears the badge, this hearing is not to blame the people doing the work. I know the reality on the ground. I hear the stories. We don't have the money for dog food. We don't have the money for equipment. We don't even have money to change oil in our vehicles. We have a mobile X-ray unit that is down and can't be fixed fast enough. And I have heard more than once that officers are sometimes spending their own personal funds just to keep essential needs covered. That should never happen. Essentially not in an agency tasked with, of course, protecting our borders. So here is the question at heart of this oversight hearing. If the resources are being appropriated, why aren't they being spent where they are needed? Because it makes no sense to tell Customs you have the budget, while the men and women in the front line are asking we don't have the basics. If we are lapsing millions of dollars while simultaneously operating without critical equipment, repairs, supplies, and staffing, then something is broken. As your chairman, I want to figure this out. What we're going to be doing today is getting to the bottom of this whole scenario. Is this a process issue, a procurement and retention issue, a planning and leadership issue, or quite frankly, lack of political will and prioritization? Because I'm going to say this plainly. Border security has to be treated as a priority, not just as a campaign speech, but in reality. But it is reality. I'm not sure if there is a doubt within the front office that we have a drug problem on this island. We are in a moment where this community is demanding we fight drugs harder, We are in the season where enforcement pressures increases and public concerns arises. We cannot keep saying we want to stop the flow of illegal drugs and contraband while failing to put our money where our mouth is. This committee believes customs matters. This legislature, whether it be a Democrat majority or Republican majority, has shown through appropriations that customs matters. The officers in this agency prove every day that customs matters. Now we need the execution to match the mission. With that, we will proceed with the hearing. I ask all officials testifying be prepared to provide clear answers, specific timelines, and documentation necessary to support the statements made on the record. At this time, I'd like to call the Director of the Guam Customs and Quarantine, as well as the Chief of Guam Customs and Quarantine, to please come forward and bring with you anyone you wish to be alongside yourselves. And before we begin, I'd like to call, of course, the Sergeant at Arms to please swear in all those who will testify on behalf of the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency.
If you could please stand and raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Mr. Chair, you're under oath. You may proceed.
Thank you, Sarge. Director Pareto and Chief Perez, please introduce yourselves and your team for the record, and you may proceed with your presentation. I understand you have a PowerPoint, right?
Good afternoon, Senators.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ike Pareto. I'm the Director for the Customs and Quarantine Agency. To my right is Chief Perez, Vincent Perez. To his right is Colonel J.T. Cruz. To his right is Colonel Franklin Gutierrez. And to his right also is Colonel Francis Ferrin. To my left is Captain John Rick Mendiola. And to his left is Colonel Barb Tayama. And we have our ASO, Ms. Clarice Biggs, to his left. After Senator Jesse Lujan, Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal Foreign Affairs, and honorable members of the legislature, Senator Ada, Senator Sean Gumatauto, and Senator Teresa Lang. My name is Ike Pareto, and I'm the Director for the Customs and Quarantine. And of course, joining me for this afternoon's oversight hearing are members of my management staff to answer any questions. Aligning with today's agenda, we have prepared a slide presentation. The agency is organized into 5 key areas to execute the agency's funded and unfunded mandates, duties and responsibilities, and regulatory and enforcement programs that deliver customs services to the island, ensuring our very best to facilitate legitimate commerce and trade, protect our people from fraudulent and dangerous products, combat illicit drug activities, secure national security interests, protect our environment and resources from infectious plant, animal, and biosecurity threats. These components consist of the Director's Office, which is the Administration, Inspection and Control and Logistics Division, Special Enforcement Division. In collaboration and in unison, we deliver on-border programs, policies, procedures, and support for the execution of our mission and the many funded and unfunded mandates to secure our ports of entry. Currently, the agency has 150 sworn customs officers, 13 civilians, support staff, 12 trainees. Together, we are responsible for manning and servicing and inconsistent vigilance of our ports of entry that include the Guam International Airport, air freight facilities, Anderson Air Force Base, U.S. Postal Office, the Port Authority of Guam, Agana and Agate Marina, and the U.S. Naval Station Guam. Next slide, please. CQA's operations are supported by the Administrative Support and Staff Division, responsible for handling human resources, recruitment, payroll, procurement, the collection of our customs inspection fees, and payables. This section ensures the priorities that all our financial obligation and expenditures, budget information, personal needs, supplies, and equipment are met. All contingent to financial availability and navigating the intra and inter workings of the government procedures and rules and regulations. Currently, we have personnel slotted within these respective categories as depicted. Next slide, please. Personnel within the Inspection and Control Division are assigned to facilitate the processing and conveyances, passengers, and cargo entering and departing Guam at the airport, air cargo facilities, Barrigada postal facilities, maritime ports, and Anderson Air Force Base operations. Next slide, please. ICD constitute the largest of the 5 components of the agency. They are the frontline professionals who meet, inspect, clear, seize, and regulate all conveyances, persons, and cargoes entering our ports of entry. Nearly half of the agency's 53% of personnel are assigned to this division. Next slide. To provide a measurement as to the scope and responsibility of this division in calendar year 2025, ICD facilitated the arrival of over 13,000 aircraft, over 850,000 arriving and transiting passengers at both Guam International Airport and Anderson Air Force Base. At our waterfront, over 826 vessels were inspected and cleared, and more than 140 metric tons of cargo facilitated, inspected, migrated, regulatory and enforcement protocols applied before entering the commerce of Guam through programs and procedures. Our next division is the Logistics and Support Division, LSD, consisting of Property and Evidence, Custodian Office, Fines, Fees, and Forfeitures, Training and Development, Research and Development, and Records Management Office, and its staff with 15 personnel. LSD handles all evidence property seized while awaiting disposition, adjudication, or other legal action, investigate non-drug related offenses or infractions, conduct and coordinate introductory recruit training and recertification, as well as continual professional development within our agency, conducts policies, research, evaluates programs, and provide recommendations to improve our services, searches and applies for grants in conjunction with our administrative section, and is the holder of all records, equipment, and other property assets for the agency. Next slide. For calendar year 2025, LSD section significant activities included the processing, accounting, and storing of safekeeping of 373 non-narcotic cases referred to Property Office. These seizures are prohibited goods intercepted by ICD officers, including case investigated with customs violations, detainments, or seizures of public health, U.S. FDA misbranded or adulterated foods, medicines or devices, tobacco and alcohol import violations, fraudulent and non-compliant imports subject to EPA and or US DOT regulations, and endangered species violations subject to local and federal laws. 35 cases of IPR or copyright products were investigated by the Fines, Fees, and Forfeitures section, with all the reports submitted to the Attorney General's Office for further disposition in violation of Chapter 47, Title 9, Guam Code, annotated. IPR violations are significant cases due to the quality of products that they misrepresent, consumer deception, and negative impact on the island's image. Training section successfully graduated 29 officers of the 15 CQA training cycle and is currently administering training for 12 CQT of the 16th cycle. Next slide, please. The last division, the Special Enforcement Division, is the second largest division within CQA. It consists of contraband enforcement teams, drug detector dog, biosecurity unit, agriculture canine, maritime interdiction task force, Office of Intelligence, X-ray team, and the Federal Task Force section. From investigations of narcotics incidents and trafficking occurring at the ports of entry, deployment of both drug and agriculture detector dogs into operations, migrating and resolving incidents of imported animals and plant disease, monitoring and surveillancing the over 116 miles of Guam coastline and surrounding waters, gathering intelligence and working alongside our federal and local law enforcement partners. SED provides an array of assets and functions in delivery of CQA services at interdiction at our ports of entry. Next slide.
On the wrong slide. One more slide. They're still on the wrong slide.
What number?
Next slide.
This is it, right? Number 11. As the second largest division, it accounts for 23% of the agency, or 41 of personnel assigned to SCD. Next slide. 12 and 13. Provided on this slide and the next is the data graphic of the cumulative amounts of illicit drugs seized by the agency and processed by SED. Note the other drugs are for illegal possession of scheduled drugs such as Amrax and Oxidol. Next slide. The next two slides displays the total assets and equipment of CQA. Next slide, please. The chart illustrates assets we currently have, the number of assets we need, and progress, and the status of how we are trying to process these assets. Next slide. The next slide focuses on the status of modernization. Okay. Planning ahead of automation and the modernization integration will require formation of a core internal agency team that will focus on the entire project that includes initiation, development, re-engineering, amending, rollout, collaborating, testing, quality control, adjustment, and implementation. Additionally, we anticipate the creation of a new information technologies section to support the agency and the platform. The activities thus far include contracting the Oceania Customs Organization and their team experts to conduct and assess the assessment of CQA utilizing the World Customs Organization, Strategic Assessment 2, and Diagnostic Assessment. Reports have been completed. Next, OCO's consultants, automation review, and final report of the Guam ability and needs to automate our manual processes with current custom-centric technology and advances trade facilitation. Development of Guam HS 2022 system and awareness of familiarization and training. Legal review of Guam's custom statutes and regulations by OCO's legal consultant. Fact-finding missions to Palau to study the and interact with them on the implementation of the Yasakuda system and the HS in their clearance process. Sharing best practices and lessons learned with their role out. These activities were funded by the Department of Interior Technical Assistance Program grant made possible through Guam Bureau and Statistics and Plans. Slide 17, right?
Next slide.
Next slide, please.
And then the next.
Is that number 7? 18?
Yeah.
Supporting initiatives underway by CQA to support the modernization preparations for automation includes creating the rules and regulations for the admissions of manifests by carriers, such as...
Sorry. Next slide. Next slide.
Next slide, please. That's this, right? Creating the rules and regulations for the submissions of manifests by carriers, such as United, Matson, American President Airlines, Japan Airlines, and all other carriers of freight and passengers. Reforming and mending entry of current rules and regulations for entry of goods contained in Title IV of the Government of Guam rules and regulations, both administrative and adjudication act law. Acquisition of customs software, specifically the automated systems of customs data known as ASACUDA, administered by the United Nations Conference Trade and Development, known as UNTAC. The agency is strictly appreciative of Senator Lujan's Bill 234-38 and reiterates its full support of the bill passage that will identify ASACUDA as a system for the government will adopt for our customs automation needs. As this bill makes its way, we are still an invitation for bid for sole source procurement is being finalized as a contingency. A new 760 DOI type grant for the continuing automation project is secured, as well as an additional $1.3 million from local funding. Next slide, please. Projected timelines following Bill 234-38. April, bill signed into law, and then cancellation of IFB. May, negotiation with UNTAC. June to July, routed for review and signature, and by September or the fall of 2026, UNTAC begins work. Next slide, please. Scope of activities, 2026, May to December, project initiation by management. 2027, January to April, functional and legal reforms. March, technical implementation of IT infrastructure, and November of that same year, training and capacity building. 2028, January, development and testing, controlled rollout. April, support and sustainability, and fall is the full rollout. Next slide, please. This slide represents our current recruitment and retention process of personnel, as well as ongoing hiring, planned recruitment, and initiative taken by the agency with retention in as far as promotions. The chart illustrates current personnel levels as well as staffing levels the agency would ideally need to meet our mandates, our modernization, our automation, and border protection programs. Next slide, please. The slide illustrates our traditional rates, 2020. For this period, the agency has seen the departure of 41 officers, 23 to seek other employment or opportunities. In fact, the pie chart on the left shows that almost 60% of our resignations were departures to the federal government and to similar broader related agency. CQA is also tracking demographics for continuity of service purposes. 34% of tenure mid or senior level personnel are within retirement age. The agency is taking steps to prepare for the next generation of leaders of this agency. Next slide, please. To understand the laws of the agency has submitted ways to keep our officers. 1, submission of recruitment and retention pay differential requests to DOA for authorization and appropriation for CQA officers. Next slide, please. Supporting initiative underway by CQA to support modernization. Upward mobility through known promotional potential by means of competitive promotions currently under review by DOA, supporting the Guam Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission involvement in law enforcement pay structure, standardization, and to bring us closer to our counterparts in other U.S. jurisdictions. Why do we need this? Justification for compensation plan.
Mr. Director, 1 second, please. Can we go back 1 slide?
1 slide, ma'am?
1 slide, yeah. Go back 1 slide. No. Forward 1. Yeah, is that the one? This is where it's at. Okay.
Why justification of compensation plan parity? The master of 2 border disciplines, Customs and Animal Plant Protection and Quarantine, merged. Secondly, Training Initiative. Third, to pass federal background security checks. And lastly, US CBP requirements of 2 years voter experience and federal background checks for GS9 starting pay. Next slide, please. This. Organizational restructuring and alignment due to modernization, automation, and organic growth. CQA IT personnel, additional 5 slots are needed. Number 1, modular automated system needs. Secondly, system maintenance. Third, system troubleshooting. And lastly, 24-hour system activity. Moving on, administrative support. Accountant, 2, 1 body needed. Administrative assistant, 2, and administrative aide, 5. And the last section here is new sections, which is compliance and post-audit section, risk and threat assessment section, and information technology. Go to the next one. Next slide, please. Preparation for performance-based budgeting, status and preparation of budgetary methodology by the division. We have initiated a template that we are going to use in preparing our performance-based budgeting. And this is the template that we're going to be using as we move on with our budget. And the first one is to review of funded and unfunded mandates. Second is the program, the function, and the purpose of each sections. The third is to explain the needs of all these particular resources. Also identify the costs, which deals with personnel, capital assessment, equipment, and lastly, the program outcomes on investment. Next slide, please. Interagency coordination. These are the number of local and federal agencies that we collaborate with on a daily basis. As you can see, there's a long list, not only local, but both federal agencies. Lapses for fiscal year 24 and 25. Lapses at this point in time, what we have received from our fiscal team is that there's no lapses for customs for fiscal year 24 and 25, and that any lapses remaining after the fiscal year, once September closes, there is no lapses for the agency. Procurement and challenges impacting operations and equipment. Procurement challenges impacting operations, equipment, and modernization. What we're seeing here on the challenges is the personnel shortage in key procurement areas that the agency is encountering. Also, antiquated procurement regulations within our government. The next one. Trade facilitation and enforcement priorities and risk management practices. What we have initiated mandatory electronic declaration forms, and you've been seeing this at the airport. We've also have an ongoing programs with the ASCUDA as we develop this particular platform for the agency. Seizures, we're talking about illicit drugs and narcotics, biosecurity threats, invasive injuries, pests and diseases, and fraudulent products. Moving on, enhanced screening. We use X-ray machines at our ports of entry, and also we use detector dogs that are used to sniff both passenger baggage and cargo. We're also screening manifests on a daily process down at the port. With respect to training and experience, our officers are continually receiving training as needed, to include providing them the needed experience that they need to do their job. And lastly, intelligence. We are incorporating intelligence within our Special Enforcement Division to enhance our enforcement with respect to individuals that are coming in through our borders. Is that it? Next slide, please. Revenue protection, compliance, and inspection protocols impacting cargo, passengers, and mail. Revenue protection, we are continuing the assessment of use tax at our borders. We are also enforcing the tobacco tax law, the liquor tax law, and of course, the customs inspection fees. Compliance and inspection protocols, conveyance, cargo, and passenger facilitation, continuous internal processes, protocols, and procedures, deployment of assets and equipment to the various ports of entry, strategic operations that are being handled by special enforcement, and experience and techniques are also being provided to the officers to include mentoring. Thank you for that, Senator. That is our presentation for today.
Thank you, Director Pareto. Your presentation this afternoon. Before I turn over to my colleagues for questions, I got a few questions myself. You know, in your presentation, you said you had there were no lapses for 2024 and 2025. Who is telling you this?
That's been given to us by the fiscal policy, BBMR, and
Okay.
DOA.
Okay, because this is the CRER, okay? And again, I'd like to reiterate, your lapses, your FY 2024 general fund lapse is 2.2 million. Your FY 2024 special fund lapse is 600,000. Your FY 2025 general fund lapse is approximately 2.9 million. And your FY 2025 special fund lapse is approximately 1.8 million, coming to about $7.5 million. And again, you're looking at CQ is projected to lapse again about 3.9 million this fiscal year. It will bring us to about $11.4 million. So, you know, I don't know where the communication breakdown is, because it's not an appropriation problem that we're having here. It's an execution and possibly a communication problem, because this is their work, not ours.
I understand that, Senator.
That's given
Even my
to us.
ASO has pointed that out to me, that what's showing in her, in the CRE is what you just mentioned. And
Yeah.
so the challenge that we have is that we cannot move forward if that particular funding is not loaded in our account.
Okay.
And when we question this, that's what they tell us.
That's what they told you, but then they issue this, that this is what's there. That's what I'm saying. So the appropriation is there, the lapses are there, and we go back and I said, you got a lapse of, you know, I mean, you know, when we talked to your men and women as we toured, and you know, again, the lack of equipment and things of that nature, and the breakdown of equipment, you're not able to service your vehicles, and sometimes to spend their own money and all this, and yet we have $11.9 million. I mean, it's hard for me to go to the chair of OFB now, this next budget coming up, and say, we need money. We need money, because what's going to happen is, Senator, there's a double appropriation here. They're not spending the money that they have. They're not spending the money that we have, and we're going to give them more money that they don't need, because they haven't spent the money that we've previously appropriated in years past. So it's not from our end. It's a breakdown in some kind of execution and communication. So, you know, I don't know whether it's I don't know where the breakdown is at this point over there, because this is what they give us. This is what they're showing. And if they're showing this and telling you another, there's a miscommunication between the administration itself, because they're straight with us and telling us one thing and telling you another.
That's true. And if you're saying that that's the current
Yes.
information that you got, then I just need to look into that and find out why is it that they're giving us the wrong information.
Well, I mean, this is the predicament we're in, okay? Because we're going into a budget cycle here and performance base, right? Okay? And again, a critical agency such as yours, and the shortages you have, whether it be manpower, you have a turnover of, I mean, again, when we went to your graduation, and I hear one person is going to be leaving the following week, wow, okay? How do we retain people? Because you become a training center for federal agencies. We don't want that. I mean, down the line, maybe, but, you know, as soon as we train them, wow, they're going to look at us, and that's all we're going to be, is a training center, basically a training institution, right, for federal agencies. And how do we keep, again, men and women, and you know, what is needed for your intervention, where intervention with drugs and other items. And so it's just, you know, so Director, I won't be able to get you the money that you're going to ask for because you have it. You have the money there, and then for them to constantly tell you that there's no money, you can't afford this, and your men and women are going without equipment, and you were down to last two bags of dog food.
Well, they finally provided me the funding that was identified on the
Yeah,
budget, which is
because
130.
otherwise
They
the
said
dogs will starve.
That is,
Yeah, otherwise the dogs will starve
that's in
to
order.
death. And you know, I know you're getting, and you know, if that's the case, if you're getting 9 more dogs, they put a hold on those dogs that manyalang, they're going to starve to death if they come. You don't have food. But you have $11.9 million in lapses. And so those are the things that, again, performance based, and again, in regards to what you need to do, it's a very vital, important agency, and they're keeping this money from you.
Senator, all I want is for them to deposit that money into my account so I can spend it. And that's what I need to do. And I can cut requisitions and send it down, and they'll return it because you're telling me there's no money in that account. That's my challenge right now.
Who is telling you that?
When the ASO cuts requisition to procure whatever we need on that particular
So it's
category.
GSA telling you, or DOA?
Clarice Briggs, Administrative Services Officer. So yes, the funds are not available. However, my internal tracking is tracking similar to what you had mentioned.
Sure.
However, it's not available because as of October 1st, we're not able to use it.
Did they say why you're not able to use it?
That's the period. The period for us to be able to use it is October 1st to September 30. So after September 30, we're not able to use it. So when we cut requisitions, the requisitions are rejected because the funds are not available.
It makes me think that the funds that you're showing, that the funds are available to you, makes me think that those funds have been diverted somewhere else and being used somewhere else. Because the funds are there. You're showing in your books. And if they're telling you one thing, but giving us, it's showing that they have it. You're showing that they have it. They're showing that they have it.
My internal tracking is
But they're
similar to
telling you,
yours.
yeah, okay, so in paper, it shows that they have it. Your paperwork shows that you have it. It's similar to this, okay? But they're telling you, they're telling you that it's not available. So money is somewhere, just not available to you guys.
That's true. I will say that.
This is your administration, Director.
Say again?
This is your administration.
I understand that.
And a critical agency. You have the AG coming down on your backs because wanting to again inspect all containers and things on that nature. And again, you made a presentation that they're telling you there's no lapses available, 24 and 25, and we're saying here that you're at 7.5, and you're closing in on 11.4 million.
I would like to show them that. I'm pretty sure that they should
Well,
be aware
all
of
they got
that.
to do is just ask them to print it out. Print out what they gave us, and show them your paperwork, because that's what they have. It's just that it's not available to you. I don't know who has it or where they put it at. Because my understanding of the way this works, okay, is that it happens all the time. They're taking from here and doing this, okay? So it's showing that you have it. It's just you don't have access to it because they took it and put it somewhere else. As critical as all you guys are and what you do, they've taken critical money for your agencies and put it somewhere else. And as critical as you guys are in your agency, I cannot go to my OFB chair and say, I need more money, because you know he's going to come back to me and say, you're an idiot. Look at the lapses. It's not us that's holding up the money. It's whoever's transferring somewhere. They need to show that it's there. Okay? They need to show that it's there, and your paperwork is correct. It's there in paper. But it might not be there because they used it somewhere else. And they have not replenished it.
And I definitely need that money. But I can't have access to it.
I know you do. I mean, every time I come to your agency, I hear the challenges that you have. And I'm just like, wow. How do you guys stay in existence? How do you stay in existence? I mean, if I had ill intent, my gosh, you know? This is totally unacceptable. And Director, please, this is your administration. You demand that money. You come to us. We've always given to you. We have always given to the agencies. Right off the bat, when we toured your place and you said, we need dog food, we need care for our canine, our OFB chair was there. I said, how much do you need? 150 grand. Right away. 150 grand. You got that. But then I was disturbed a couple of weeks ago when we're down to 2 bags of food. It's the administration keeping that money. We've given that money. The money is there. The money is there. And that's why with this oversight, because prior to, again, these performance-based budgeting, we need to justify to the OFB chair that this is what's needed. This is critical. He knows it's a critical agency. He knows that. But what's critical as well is that you get the sums of money that has been appropriated to you and the lapses that come to you. Because what they're telling you is a lie. It's an outright lie. They stole your money. We're given to a critical agency, and they're pilfering your money. I feel for the men and women. And maybe that's part of the retention problem, is that they know that they're going to be dealing, with working, but inadequately because they don't have the funding. And it's their own government doing it to themselves. I don't know what to say at this point. You know, The only job we have here, we hold the purse strings and giving you the money, okay? We don't give you a bag that's empty. But unfortunately, we don't give it straight to you. We give it to somebody else that controls it. We give them the full bag of money. But when you say, hey, can you have that bag? Wait a minute, there's no money in there. Sa masaki sa lapin eh. They took the money. I don't know what to say anymore other than, man, is it 2026 yet? Mr. Director, I'm trying. And we've been giving to you, you know that. Your men and women know that. I mean, you have the best men and women, and the ones that continue to stay because they believe, hats off, and I salute them. But man, I mean, they're working with condition. I mean, wow.
Well, I hope that we can open that dialogue with them, knowing that you're reporting to me right now that there's money in there.
There is. And your paper, your ASO knows that as well. Your paperwork is correct. It's correct. It has nothing to do with your personnel. It's correct. It's absolutely correct.
And, you know, we can't card requisition and I can't certify any type of procurement if there's no money in that
Well,
account.
they're telling
So
you
that-
there's no money, okay? They're telling you there's no money. And that might be correct. Because if they took it, there's no money. But they have to show that there is, because they're going to have to tell us where that money, because we appropriated that money, and this is your lapse, okay? So it's showing in paper, it's showing, okay? But that's it, okay? It's not the legislature that handles, once we give you the money, it's not the legislature that handles the theft. The theft happens from within. It's in-house theft. To a critical agency. And maybe it's done purposely because you're a critical agency. They know that if we shortchange them, hey, shoot that bro. It's not good. Man.
I will bring that up, Senator, and I will make it clear that you are presenting whatever tangible information to me, telling me that there is money there, and for them to tell me that there's no money and I can move forward with my programs because it cannot be loaded in our account.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're telling me that it's there and I can go ahead and move forward with those things.
And if you meet also, when you get ready for budget and you meet with OFB, they'll tell you the same thing. When you request for funds, they're going to say, Wafa, your lapse, you have this. And that's what when in our meeting, they said, you know, if you appropriate again, it'll be double appropriation. You're giving them, again, money that they can't spend. And I know that you can spend that money. I know that you can spend it.
I need that. I need that money.
If they give you, I know you can spend it. It's not that you're, you know, that you cannot, because from all I hear from your men and women out there, they need this, your trucks. I mean, wow. You can't even change the oil in your vehicles. Your X-ray machine is down? Wow. That's, I mean, anyway. Senator Duenas?
Mr. Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here to the Customs family, and nice to see the recruits joining us today. This hearing might be harder than your than your drills, but we're trying to help. And Chief, listen, like the chair said, it's tough. You know, it's tough talk because we have to do this, and the reason why is because we've shifted gears in terms of how we are going to base ourselves on how we're going to use our very, very precious resources of our government finances. And I want to thank you first and foremost. I might have a few follow-up questions, but I'm not going to question really much of what you've put forward, Chief. I know that most of that's follow-up on stuff in terms of your internal operations. I'm going to concentrate on the 3 slides that we have the responsibility of. First of all, I'm not just the OFB chair, but I am the vice chair, and I care very much about, you know, customs. I care very much about our entire government, but of course, those that I have, you know, oversight over as a vice chair, I may not be in all the pictures. You know, sometimes I miss stuff, but I'm always thinking about you, and this is why we're having this conversation today, and I'm going to zero in on these 3 slides. Chief, thank you very much, and I don't want to put your ASO through this. She knows. We are not deriving this information from just OFB. We're actually pulling it from the report that is generated. The Consolidated Revenue Expenditure Report is consolidated by law on a monthly basis that basically tracks all the funds. And it basically also, within its calculation, shows what your appropriation levels were and how you're spending your money. And so I understand, Chief, probably your fiscal officer, which is correct, you know, put on the slide for 24 and 25. It didn't say no lapses, it says no lapses available. And here's where we're really encountering the difficulty, because Chief, what you're presenting to us today is that you need to spend that money. You need to, but for some reason, the restraints and the constraints are there. Now, I've been a part of an administration several times, a couple times, and I know that there are reserves that are placed, but generally those reserves are not implemented in the critical areas, mostly law enforcement and critical areas. I consider customs C&Q as a critical area. Now, I know there may be some situations whereby maybe if you're budgeted for cycles or the like, you know, if you don't get the recruits, if you don't get that going fast enough, then that's understandable. I mean, it happens, right? You can only run the cycles as you get those released from DOA, as you can get the training cycle going. I get that. Here's where I want to hone in on. And Chief Perez, I appreciate you and everyone that's come to me over the years and basically said, you know, we need help, we need help, we need help. The problem is with the next slide I want to concentrate on is, and I agree with this, Chief, and I agree with your team, on the recruitment and retention of officers and key personnel, the initiatives are submitted recruitment and retention pay differential request to DOA for authorization, appropriation for CEQ&A officers, known promotional potential, that's internal, once again, DOA, Guam Peace Officer Standard Training Commission involvement with law enforcement standard to pay, that's internal, you got direct access to them. Justification for compensation plan parity, mastery of 2 border disciplines, customs, animal and plant protection, quarantine merged, that's internal. Training initial, that's internal. Past federal background security check, that's up to the individual, right? They get that clearance, they're eligible, correct? And US CBP recruitment of 2 years border experience and federal background check for GS-9 starting pay. Now, as the chair pointed out, and as I had an opportunity to speak to many of your folks during the graduation recently. We're losing your folks, and it's in your presentation. My issue is that you know already you're going to have a certain inability to spend certain funds because of it's more than likely recruitment, because that's the cycle. Here's where I want to ask you the question, and to the team, Chief. Because you're in a current fiscal year right now where you're tracking $3 million. Now, I know it's the beginning of the fiscal year, and the funds are loaded, and operationally, you got another cycle underway, so they won't be under payroll until they complete graduation or on board. My direct question to you and also Chief, because we've been talking about this, in order to get through this retention, do you have a spending plan internally now while you're lapsing these funds to hold on to what you got? To get this plan to fruition so that you can stop the bleeding of officers while you're building back through recruitment. Chief Paris?
Thank you, Senator. Once again, my name is Vincent S. Ampers. I am the Chief of Customs. And in reference to the discussion and the question, in reference to your question about do we have a spend plan, yes, we have a spend plan. And if you notice, you're mentioning things about, a lot of the things that we're dealing with may on the face of it appear internal. But one of the entities that oversees many of our processes to include differential pay, recruitment, hiring, promotions is the Department of Administration. In the coming weeks or the coming month, we will be receiving the GAO report on some topics regarding customs and the possibility of what happens if we federalize and several other options. So that report remains to be seen. But I'm sure that that report will highlight many of the issues that we're facing here today. And going back to Senator Lujan's discussion, I wrote some notes down as we were speaking. What's reported in the CRER is not verified or identified by BBMR. And then we're talking about transparency, right? So one of the things that we keep talking about internally with the agency is the fact that as we've been discussing ways to improve our situation as far as recruitment, retention, acquiring all the equipment, there are several things that have to happen. First and foremost, we're going to need to make a change in our rates. For the traveling public, which is the only one that gets affected by our fee for passengers, we have not made a change in over 13 years, right? So imagine if we made it, we changed just a little bit, right? Then we can talk about other funding that is necessary, and like the lapses, $7.5 million is currently in total being lapsed. And I'm going to go back to DOA being the one entity that kind of oversees. So they see all these different entities under its purview. And for those in the audience who are not aware that Customs actually could be an autonomous agency. With autonomy comes additional privileges. We can get our own accountant. We can set our own commission to be able to determine rates. We won't have the same issues that we're dealing with currently with another entity within the government of Guam under the executive branch providing oversight. I hear from personnel who work down at the Department of Administration that they don't have enough personnel to service the government agencies. So when they're dealing with Guam Customs, or GSA for that matter, when we're dealing with procurement, and then you hear that people left, and then they rotate people around, then the institutional knowledge starts at the baseline again. And then what was good yesterday is no longer good today. oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Parrish, you need to get a sole source. And then when you get the sole source, oh, Mr. Parrish, you don't need a sole source, you just need to do this. It's so confusing. But in line with the questions that are asked here, perhaps either authorize through mandate that we give customs certain authority to hire its own accountant, or give us some authority to allow us some autonomy separate from what's being provided for 30, 40 other executive branch agencies within the government of Guam. I'm not the only one in law enforcement. Everybody else is saying the same thing. There are just too many agencies to service with the Department of Administration to be able to adequately and efficiently perform the job that needs to be done. And in many cases, we lose the capability to acquire or purchase through the procurement because of some technical issue. And a lot of times, transparency again. If there's an issue, call us and tell us what it is. Don't just give us the documents and say, we're going to take no action. There's got to be some give and take. We are one government. I'll repeat that again. We are one government. We need to work together. But if within our own government we can't be able to provide the services, I can't be able to provide protection at the border because I can't hire people, I can't get the necessary equipment, I can't even change the rates. There's so many things in tandem with what we're trying to do here that needs to be accomplished. But you know, it's kind of like if we only take it and look at it in one manner and not take a look at what are the other overlying effects, how can we holistically approach and address the issues that were presented? And I'm pretty sure in other oversights, you're probably going to hear the same thing. They've got the same procurement issues. They may have lapses. So my proposal, at least for us, is we have the capability to become an autonomous agency. We have the mechanism to create rates that can sustain us. And we have the sustainability by ensuring that if the rates change, we have a person like an accountant that comes to the director or the chief and says, sirs, this year you need to make a change in your rate. You're not collecting enough. And for the past 13 years, we've been operating at $8.29, at least on the passenger side, and many other organizations within the government and across the world, they don't stop at that rate. They have other rates that are included. So we're also looking at exploring those avenues. But if we're not even given the capability to do our own rate changes, then that's going to impact us and impact our recruitment, impact our retention. So,
Chief, just real quick, right? In regards to the rates, right? Here's the thing, that you may need it, but it's going to be an impossible sell based on lapses, okay? When you go and say, hey, we need this because we haven't changed our rates, then say, well, you can't even spend the money that you have now.
that's true.
So it's going to be an impossible sell to increase the rates, knowing that there's lapses, and then supposedly your agency cannot even spend the money that we appropriate to you on an annual basis.
I understand.
Okay? So that is off the table right now until we solve everything else. Because again, that'd be an impossible sell. Say 11.4 million lapse. They can't even spend the money, and they're wanting more to increase it because they need money for operations and this and that. We know you need money, and the money is there for you. It's just not being given to you. But because it's there and it's in black and white, you technically still have it, and you haven't spent it.
That's true.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No problem. You know, you're the chairman, so you can stop me anytime. So, Chief, I want to be clear. When I say internal, I want to make sure everybody understands this, to include your command staff here. I mean internal, not the legislature. Not, I don't mean internal to, you're not trying, okay?
Understood.
So that's why, and I get it. Believe me, I hear it. DOA will be down here in a few weeks, and we've got a number of different things we're going to go over to include these perennial issues. But this is my point, Chief. So once again, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Because it looks like you're more than likely going to continue to lapse at an exponential rate. Pretty much, I'll go to this in a moment in terms of operational. I mean, it really, I'll go to current year. I'm not going to worry about this part right now because I know why it says no available lapses. When I had my conversation with the governor, she says no lapses, which means if those lapses are held, they're held. They're not moving. So I'm going to concentrate on current year. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you when you come forward to the budget, because I'm going to go into just my final discussion here on the 3 slides that I'm concerned with on the performance-based budgeting. Chief and Chief Perez and your team, I think you're ready for this. It looks like you've got the outlay. I was told by OFB straight away, law enforcement and paramilitary organizations, they all have measured outcomes. You guys got a mission, it's clear. Your mandate is clear what you got to do, and your numbers are already showing it. Chief, you put it down. You've got your employments, you got everything else that you deal with, no question about that. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. On the basis of the way you're lapsing right now, put forward an implementation of your retention plan based on your current budget. Because right now, it looks like you would be able to expend, and you won't have to worry about the funding going forward. That legislature is going to have to come up with that if they bless that plan in your budget, saying you can do the implementation plan. Because what's the point of the cycle we just graduated? What's the point of the next cycle? Like the chair mentioned, if we're just chasing our tail, we're becoming a training agency for the federal government because they're going to know, hey, we're going to cherry pick that next cycle. We're going to make offers, probably 30 of them are going to graduate and 10 already have 1 foot out the door because they went ahead and just put in their application to see, yeah, when you graduate, come and see us. So the fact is, it's attrition right off the bat, day 1. So you got to stabilize, which means you have to be able to present to us that you can implement your strategic plan for retention within your current operational year based on the fact that you've been lapsing at X amount, and we can extrapolate that based on your performance-based budgeting request. And if that's one of your key points, Chief, we should be able to move forward on that so that those that are with you say, all right, I'll stick around.
Thank you, Senator. Maybe perhaps some clarification. I need to find out if we're okay when we come to the budget, to the hearing, to also make a recommendation that because the Department of Administration is the one that currently does pay studies, if we're able to maybe get some funding that we have available to be able to hire another group to be able to conduct the study. Because at this point right now, things are moving so slow, and our attrition, I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen in the next 8 to 12 months, because we just had 2 graduations. We had one last month, and we're having another one tentatively scheduled for July. And then if you take a look at all the different cycles that have graduated before, how many are still going to stay? And then we're going to talk about institutional knowledge. We need to come out with a stopgap to ensure that at the appropriate level, you're either getting promoted and you have the appropriate level of institutional knowledge to be able to work the area that you're working. So the question I'm asking is if we would we be able to put in that request to be able to get some kind of study done if DOA is unable to perform the study?
Absolutely. Put it in your budget request. Say we need to move forward on this because we cannot count on, and like I don't think necessarily that you're throwing DOA under the bus. What you're saying is here are all the steps that we know we need to do, but we can't execute them if we can't start with step 1. So the fact is, yes, go put it in your budget. Put it in your budget request that, listen, it's a line item. And in fact, Chief, I would work with your chief and write a letter to OFB and write a letter to BBMR if you could, you know? I'm really, I'll tell you guys straight away, I'm really getting a little frustrated with these bills and bills and bills that come out to do operational issues. When I was a director, I could get Juno voucher to move money as long as under the subject category, it was broad enough to be able to do what needed to be done in operational expenses. Now, if you can't pull that off, write to us, write to BBMR within this current budget, then definitely when you come down for your budget, this is priority 1 for retention and a new recruitment tool. We are going to give us the budget, and we will conduct this study. We will secure it, and we'll conduct it so that we can make that presentation. And then all the other steps, Chief, that you put in there, when I say internal, meaning you're going to have to bug those guys. You're going to have to make sure that you go to Post and say, look, Post, we're executing this because we're putting it in our budget. In fact, all law enforcement agencies should just do that now, because I know DOC has the same problem. And so I'm saying, yeah, it's nice to write a bill for that, but the truth is that for me, put it in your budget and do it yourself. You've got the ability to move it forward. I would appreciate that, because that's the only way we're really going to be able to move off of this. The problem that we have, guys, really is, and I want you to be able to appreciate this. If we meet at the grocery store, if I go to graduation, if we meet at a social where, you know, we happen to be at the same wedding or same christening or unfortunately maybe the same funeral, the truth is this: I'm going to have the same answer every time now. I don't think you have a money problem. I think the issue that you have is to be able to communicate, and those things are unable to be done internally because you can't get movement within the other entities you have to work on. Then you're going to have to take the bull by the horns and move it forward. Because until I stop seeing this track of lapses, I'm going to have a hell of a time budgeting going forward and justifying an increase in budget when this money's not moving. There's too many priorities across the board within the government to say we can sit on $7 million. And like I said, we're not blaming you for it, but what we're saying is there's a couple different things you're going to need to do, because we already know. If you go back, Chief, I guarantee you, especially with your tenured personnel that are your command staff, they will tell you for years and years and years, we're going to put in for 3 cycles. We're lucky if we get 1 done and maybe the other one by the start of the next fiscal year. So you already know you have that built-in lapse. So move on your retention, because that's, to me, is what's critical to you. I'll finish up with this, Mr. Chair, and I'll go to the ASO for this, and I'm only going to do current year. So we've seen the tracking on the current year. It's, like I said, it's just the beginning of the fiscal year, but it's quite expensive. Have you have any requests rejected currently in this current fiscal year for any object category within your budget?
No, not at this time. With procurement?
With procurement, and also any funding request, any materials, supplies, payroll, overtime, in any object category, have you gotten any rejections in terms of what you're requesting for releases?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to make one recommendation to you then. While you're in the current fiscal year, keep putting in those requisitions. Keep that money flowing, because I'm telling you, the past record so far is showing that you're unable to move it, and when it's gone, it's gone. We'll work on that down the line, but those are my 2 requests of you folks, to be able to make sure you can keep the money moving, and to also, I think the key right now is to get that retention plan in place so you can stop the bleeding and then start moving forward. Mr. Chair, I might have a couple follow-ups after you go through the rest of the panel members. I wanted to hone in on this, and once again, thank you for endeavoring on the performance-based budgeting rollout, and also I'll continue to work with you closely and OFB to be able to help in any way we can. But other than that, I think you've been straightforward, Chief, on the other things that we've asked you for. Like I said, if time permits, have follow-ups. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Yeah, just a couple questions too and stuff, since we're in the subject now too in regards to retention. But, you know, for clarity's sake, just real quick between the director and the chief, Can you, again, for clarity, in regards to the governance, who has the operational command on day-to-day activities, basically? And how are the responsibilities split between, say, the director and the chief? Can you explain how that works, director versus the chief, and your day-to-day operational command? Who has day-to-day operational command? Is it the director or the chief?
The chief is in charge of operation.
Okay.
Whatever directive and mandates that's being pushed out from my office, it's moved to the chief to make sure that whatever directive and mandates are adhered to, and it goes out to the field offices, making sure that each and every individual within the organization is aware of that particular directive and operation.
Okay. And in regards to personnel rotation, CQA has no formal written rotation policy, yet rotations are used operationally. Who has final authority, approval on that authority for approval?
Say again?
Okay.
Are you?
In your personal rotation, right? Personnel rotation, CQA has no formal written rotation policy, yet rotations are used operationally. Who has final approval authority, and what is the current process for documentation and communication to avoid disruptive reversals?
When the chief puts out the directive for rotation, my signature will therefore an acknowledgement for me to review and acknowledge. So I will review whatever directives they're just putting out with respect to rotation, and if I don't agree, I don't sign things. And there's a reason for that.
So it's the chief that does the operation, I mean, the rotational?
Yes.
Basically, okay.
Yes.
And you
Concur.
you concur?
Yes.
Okay. Can you void his or her?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I'm the appointing authority.
Okay. Okay, given, of course, the CQA staffing shortages, when grievances pause as transfer pending, DOA guidance, and Attorney General opinion, what is the expected timeline for those determinations, and what is your interim deployment plan to maintain readiness? Should the coverage be at the seaport, airport, or mail, overtime, or fatigue management without the rotation framework?
I don't quite understand the
Okay.
question.
When you have a shortage of staff, right? Okay. When the grievance pauses transfer spending, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay. The DOA guidance and the Attorney General's opinion, okay? What is the expected timeline for those determinations, and what is your interim deployment plan to maintain readiness at the ports of entry, like seaport, airport, mail, and then overtime or even fatigue management rotation, the framework? So how do you deal with that in those situations?
When a grievance is filed, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
When there is a pending grievance, it's covered under the personal rules and regulation. If that individual is filing a grievance against management, nothing moves unless that grievance is settled.
Okay, but how do you deal with that, again, if you have a shortage of staff, or you have, a shortage of staff, and
I'm going to have to find a way to deal with it as long as I don't violate their personal rights with respect to the grievance policy.
Okay, and you're able to deal with that within the manpower
Yes.
that you have currently?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Kumatauta.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this oversight hearing with Guam Customs and Quarantine, and thank you all for being with us today. You're at an oversight hearing doesn't necessarily always have to be the most painful process you'll ever experience as a member of your respective agency, so please, this is not meant to be painful, it's just meant to help. And in terms of our purpose, that's one of the best functions of, we get maybe as a legislative branch, is our chance to be able to go and talk to the executive branch agencies and get a glimpse into what you all do and ask pretty hard questions because you're asking us for policy support, and we're just here to offer up that help. I was interested that you did not mention in your presentation, we'll start on the modernization efforts, And thanks to the chair for inviting us, and I mentioned it many times here in this room with you all present, to visit the Port Authority and your operations there. And I would go right to the heart and soul of my question was, with respect to Public Law 38-86 from December 20, 2025, not too long ago, which provides CQA with an additional 2 years to develop a satellite inspection facility in PD, what information is available summarizing CQA's ongoing work with the Port Authority of Guam and GITA to identify funding for the much-needed facility there? Anybody want to answer?
What are we doing with that? Is that what you're
Amen,
asking?
sir. What are you doing?
Okay, so we have, with respect to the port facility, of course, you gave us the authority to extend the use of the land for another 2 years. So where we're at with that is that the A&E right now is being done by Public Works. The funding is there. It's been, I would say, JV to Public Works, and they're working on that to identify a company to do the A&E for the agency.
So Director Pareto, do you have any idea when you may get a response, or what's the planned date for response?
So we're just waiting for, the last word that I got is that they're making an announcement. They already published for a vendor to move forward with the A&E, and I'm not too sure when they're going to award that to that particular vendor.
And
That's where we're at with the A&E.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Now, regarding the draft feasibility study, which was being used at the time as a framework, if you will, to seek federal grants through the Guam State Clearinghouse and the Bureau of Statistics and Plans for the design and construction of that facility, has any portion of the draft feasibility study from 2021, now we're talking March of 2021, it's nearly 5 years ago, has been adjusted based on the port's 2023 master plan and the changes that have emerged during the intervening 4 years in your kind of engagement with them? You understand the question?
Senator John Rick Mendiola of Customs. Your feasibility study was the one that the Port Authority conducted with their consultants. And for clarification, this is regarding the feasibility study for the adjustment of a rate. Is that correct?
No, it has to do with the actual facility and the way to get the facility. Remember, you don't have a lot of money. I mean, you could use lapses, as we found out today. It was proof, the director just said you could JV money, but why not JV money for this? But going back to my question was the feasibility study and any progress or any maybe a adjustment, if you will?
We of course, again, okay, now I understand. Thank you for clarifying that. So there is a group that looked into it and worked on with the Port Authority. And we do have, at least for funding, we're being creative, and we've been researching for federal funds, grants that can provide funding for the facility. And I think we should be getting notice for the PIDP grant. Is that correct? Later on this year, which amounted to our application. We initially applied for about $40 million for the construction of the facility, okay?
And John Rick, you only need 26 for that facility, so 40 million, that goes along to put whatever inside of it, right?
We're planning ahead.
Amen.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
And
gotcha.
you know where it's located. We have to strengthen the facility because of the environment itself.
Yeah, and in fact, I think that the Port Authority would be appreciative of any upgrades to that particular area because it's been long awaiting. We didn't extend it so we can continue to study it. We did it honestly just so you can get to the ground and working on it. So yes. I do appreciate the update.
And just to add, Senator,
sure.
You know, when working with the port, of course, there was a lot of considerations to take place, and it had to do with their modernization and their expansion plans. So that's how we were able to work around and how the flow, the throughput of the facility will work in line with the plans of the Port Authority of Guam.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let me just jump, I guess, it might have been on page 22 of your presentation, but this is the idea of the recruitment and retention of officers, key personnel. The Department of Administration, excuse me, Mr. Chair, issued memorandum HRD number 25-068 on April 4th, 2025, requesting information from CQA and other public safety and law enforcement agencies relative to DOA's review of officer compensation benefits, position requirements, and duties. And if I can ask Customs, what information can you share on the status of DOA's review of the information that CQA has provided thus far, and how can the force structure plan, which is being developed right now with the assistance of the Post Commission, help with your ongoing recruitment and retention efforts?
Thank you, Senator. Vincent Perez again, Chief of Customs. So in line with that memorandum asking for information in order to conduct the study, keep in mind that I am also a member of the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. I am currently the chairman for the Law Enforcement Officer Force Structure Subcommittee, and as such, I have submitted all required documents to the Department of Administration for their review to provide the study. As to what the update is, I have not either officially through the Post Commission or in my capacity as the chief or in any other means have received any update as far as where they're at with that particular study. In line with the merging with the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission's Law Enforcement Officer Force Structure, what we did was we deliberately took each of those pay grades and levels and created a job specification and a position description questionnaire so that when they do pull the trigger and they finalize it, our agency officers are already a step ahead. And so what we're trying to do, at least with the Post Commission, is to ensure that the other law enforcement agencies are performing the same function, to include the creation of what we call non-competitive career ladders, where you can move up without having to compete against other officers. You're just competing against yourself. So we are in line with the force structure. It's I think it's the other agencies that would probably have a little bit of an effort in trying to marry, but we have enough positions and enough personnel to meet every single one of those positions as outlined with the force structure.
And why I asked that question, it's because I've been watching this for months, and I hope that either you had some little number that was attached to that, so that in your budget submission, that for this fiscal year, that it reflect that effort. Because, I mean, we've been talking about this since way before the start of the new fiscal year. It's a reasonable ask to take this particular plan. Now, okay, we already know, because you're not Guam Police Department, you're not gonna have the same level of that rate. You probably won't get there. You might be right below them because of your role. But that number for the finance chair to be able to help us craft the budget, I'm hoping, because at this point, I do not even know if the governor's even submitted her budget based. Oh, sorry, Governor, I know you're listening. So I guess your budget just, thank you, Gov, for submitting based on statute. And I wanted to go back to your earlier comment. You were saying that, you know, you're hoping for the autonomy. You're hoping for, let's get past DOA. But this is the way that, in my humble opinion, Chief, the entirety of not just Guam Customs, but all of our law enforcement agencies, as the chairman of public safety, I'm hoping that we all can take that process, and then when you guys are submitting, well, if it's there, then we can, you know, once and for all, compensate to all of our law enforcement officers and the like, where they should be today in 2026. Right. Now, let me just go, if I could, and I'm still baffled, quite frankly, Director, on page 25 and your 0 on lapses. I'm still trying to process, and I appreciate your candor, but you provided testimony to the legislature last month on a particular measure proposing to grant public safety agencies, to include yours, continuing appropriation authority writing that the legislation would create the appearance of incorrect funds, which will lead to the creation of a government deficit. This is what was written. Now, during a meeting I had several days later with you and with members of your command staff, I was informed that your attempt to access those appropriations for FY25 in 26 as authorized by the Budget Act was denied. And I think we've heard it at length today. Now, since our meeting last month, if you can tell us what portion of fiscal year 2025 appropriations has CQA accessed, and for what purpose were those resources used for?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Other than the appropriations that were identified for the automation, and I think there was something there for K-9 maintenance, we have access almost everything that within our budget right now. We have no, I don't see any restriction other than the 1.3 that was appropriated, stating that we can use the lapse funds to move forward.
So you guys have accessed your entire, I don't know, 21 million? You've accessed all of it already? That's what you're saying?
No, based on the allotment, I think I'll have the
Okay.
ASO explain that.
That's what I'm asking. How much have you guys?
Fiscal year 25,
Okay, for this fiscal,
26.
for the fiscal year, the current one.
current,
Yeah.
Current.
how much have we?
Have you accessed so far?
was loading?
All was
everything-
loaded except for the 1.3.
Except for the 1.3.
Well, with the 150 for the K-9, we had to use our current appropriation.
Okay, how about for 25, last fiscal year?
25, how much was loaded?
How much have you been able to access from FY25? Any of your lapses? Any of your?
None of our
Zero.
lapses. We have not been able to use any of our laps.
So zero.
Yes.
Okay. Including special funds, right?
We have not,
Zero.
yes.
Okay. Now, based on the fiscal team's denial of your request to access unexpended prior appropriations, do you believe, Director Pareto, that legislation is necessary to protect these funds for their intended purposes at CQA? And do you believe, absent such a measure, that CQA's annual appropriations might be used for non-CQA obligations and without legislative knowledge and oversight?
I believe that if something in the budget law dictates that we should have access to those, I support that.
You know, I think that's the open dialogue that you mentioned earlier that's needed here. And I think that for all of us, it would greatly help. And just like many of this panel up here, we've all spent time with the governor herself. And some of these important issues, especially this particular issue, we know that she is, well, kind of waiting for us so that she can use it to support you as well. I mean, it was mentioned so many times up here this afternoon so far. And again, those numbers, those are from the CRER. Those are directly from the executive branch. We're just trying to ensure that that's what your people are getting so you guys can do your jobs more effectively. I just, Mr. Chair, I just, when I think of this, I'm hoping that just as we were working earlier in this morning's oversight with the Guam Office of Homeland Security and Civil Defense, I think from my perch, I mean, we have priorities, and I think that this, for you and for your agency, especially for you, Director Pareto, to engage ADALOOP, they need to know. And they need to know that if the priority is to protect our borders, if the priority is to ensure that the men and women of Guam Customs has everything that they need, then they need to show it a little bit better by supporting the policy that's set by this branch of government. And I don't think it's much to ask. I have, there's more people on this up here that more experienced than me. But I will say that from my past experiences, ensuring that the resources get to you when it's set by policy, you should be able to get it. You shouldn't be coming here and asking us, because it's oversight hearing, we're asking you. And so I pray that you'll, when this is over, that you make an appointment and either sit with budget director or sit with the DOA director, because at some point, this conversation will come back when those two come up here for budget hearings. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time, and appreciate all of Guam Customs for all that you do.
Thank you, Senator Mattel. Senator Lai.
Mr. Chair, thank you all for your testimony and for your work. As for the money, did they tell you, Director, that the reason they're not giving you the money is because there's no continuing appropriation in the budget for it to use the lapses?
The only information that I got is that although my agency is showing a 2.9 or 2.8
In September.
lapses, they're saying that there's no lapses.
Right.
Once September 30, I think, ends, that's it.
Right.
It's
But
gone.
For other agencies, if they're going to be able to use it after September 30th, we need to put a continuing appropriation language in the budget. But I looked, and for Customs, I don't see one for 25 or 24. So is that what they told you? That's the reason that they're not allowing you to use it, because it wasn't authorized.
They didn't tell me that, but I did look to see, and it's not in the budget.
There is an authorization to use 1.45 million of it for specific purposes, right? It says 1.45 from FY25 Department Lapse Funds, right?
Yes.
That's for the modernization automation project 1.3, and then the 150,000. And you said they didn't even allow you to use 150,000 from that appropriation?
The 150, we had to find it within the current appropriation.
Because they denied it?
Yes.
They denied you using
They just didn't,
FY25?
it wasn't loaded.
All right. What about the modernization?
Even the modernization, I was told that there's no lapses and that the administration bureau budget will come back and try and find that funding to move forward with that project.
But you've shown them the law that says that you're authorized to use these lapses from FY25?
Yes.
All right. So according to the chair, there's 2.5 million lapses from September. But this law authorizes you to use 1.45 million of that, and you're saying even that amount has been denied. All right, yeah, that is concerning, and they don't put anything in writing to you as to their reason, their rationale, as to this, because it's very clear in the law that that's allowed.
I did email BBMR to explain to them that the 1.4 is covered under the FY 2026 budget. And so they came back to me and mentioned to me that although it's identified on the budget, there is no lapses to transfer so that you can have access to this fund. That's what they're telling us.
Okay. Well, as the chair said, that's kind of opposite of what the CER shows. But as for your special funds, so there is in the 2026 budget, it says you can continue to use funds in the special funds. Special revenue funds shall not lapse and not be subject to related appropriation constraints. So the most recent CRER looks like you're tracking to bring in more in the special fund than what was actually stated in the budget. So do you think you will have any problem using that? All that you bring in the special fund?
I think there's something, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think the law is very specific when it says special fund from a budget standpoint, that it's a continuing appropriation.
Right.
It's identified there by
So
law.
you should have no problem using your special fund, right?
No, we shouldn't have any problem. It's the matter of identifying it and for the fiscal people or DOA to tell us that the fund is there. We're going to load the funds so that you can use it.
Okay.
So that's the challenge that we have.
All right, so you're showing them their own reports that show that the funds are there, and they're still denying, they won't load it to your accounts, is what you're saying? Okay, and then, all right, so aside from budget, I had other questions. One is, in the last hearing we had on one of the bills, Director, you testified that you were increasing K-9 units at the port, and that you had increased them effective January 2025. And I just wanted to ask you, is this the report that you made today regarding methamphetamines? You said there were 48 seizures. Is any of that from the port?
Not with methamphetamines.
All right. And so that's even after the K-9s were put there? They're still
Yes.
finding nothing?
We haven't come across. And I have the Special Enforcement Colonel here that maybe can elaborate on that.
Yeah, is there something impeding that, or do you just really believe that there's no methamphetamines coming through the port?
I just believe we haven't found it yet. We're still looking.
All right. There was a report in, I think, January from the AG. He made a plan of what he wants to do, and he was alleging that there are cement trucks at the time that were sitting at the port for 9 days uninspected. Is that possible? That
No.
cars or other kind of vehicles are sitting
That
there?
information is not accurate, Senator. And again, the SCD enforcement people can advise you about that, because I know that they did run the dogs on that particular container.
How often, well, how soon do you get to inspect automobiles that are brought in?
I'm sorry, my name is Frank Gutierrez, Colonel with a Special Enforcement Team. So, to your question, it's kind of open-ended. It basically, depends on when the vessel arrives. So we usually coordinate a specific time where we bring the dogs down to conduct those inspections on conveyances. And other vehicles, they're usually in containers, so they have to ground the containers, and they have to be devanned prior to us running those containers that has vehicles in it.
So you always wait until they're devanned, taken out, the vehicles are taken out of the containers?
Correct. In relations to vehicles, yes, we're usually present during the seal breaking, and then we monitor the devanning, and then we run the X-ray when available, the K-9s, and then conduct physical inspections.
All right, so is it possible that the autos are taken out of the container and you don't get down there to inspect them for several days?
Specifically, I cannot say, but there's always an opportunity. I believe the port it's a 24-hour operation. It's just very difficult to monitor it when we're not there 24 hours a day.
No, I mean, how soon do you get to it?
If a vehicle comes in, we usually get to it as soon as we're able to conduct the devanning of the vehicle, yeah. But for example, if it's pushed out at 3 in the morning, then it would just depend on when the vehicle is ready for devanning.
All right, you read the report from the Attorney General? He said, I didn't see it, but the media reported a 100-page report from the AG regarding concerns, I guess, about inspections at the port?
Yes.
All right. So I'm guessing this was part of it, that he thinks that the stuff's being unloaded from the containers without customs looking at it, sitting on the lots for days without customs inspecting those, with many opportunity, I guess, for drugs to move in and out.
As I mentioned, Senator, I did read the report. And my information on that is that, yes, that particular container, I think it's a vehicle, heavy equipment vehicles that were on top of a loading of those flatbeds that came in and was inside the port for several days because the importer that imported that particular vehicle did not show up for clearance in a specific time. And my information on that is that, yes, our people, our K-9 team were down there and they ran the dogs on that already.
And that's your regular process, would you say?
Yes, yes. But then, you also have to take into account there's also transiting containers. And I'm not specifically sure, but that particular shipment might have been a transiting shipment that was going to be, it's just temporarily into the port that it leaves to go on another vessel.
Senator, just to share with the operations about that, I guess your question is, are we doing anything in advance to identify targeted containers or targeted merchandise? We do. And do we have mechanisms in place where we will watch and sit or put other protection protocols in order to prevent any devanning or any activity? For example, offloading a container even within the port? Yes, we do. I think, and with what the director was mentioning with the cement trucks, I think those were on flat racks. They were not containerized. They were just basically strapped down, taken off, and then, of course, port personnel would have to physically get inside to drive the trucks off and situate them ready for customs inspection. Now, we do have procedures in place that in the event that there's a specific container or there's goods that are coming off, and we want to have eyes on it all the time, this is where Colonel Gutierrez, along with Colonel Tayama, will formulate a strategic plan or operation so that more surveillance or more eyes are kept on the goods as they're coming off.
All right, well, I share the concern that, for example, the director said that Customs is working with different federal task forces, they're working with DEA and other agencies, and still there's no evidence, there's no information to show evidence that methamphetamine is coming in at the port. That's what you said in January 2025. Since then, you've put K-9s, we still haven't found any. And then I guess that's why the question's about, who's unloading what and when is Customs going to be watching that or not. But I just want to know, are you concerned about that, or are you convinced with your federal collaboration that this is not a concern for Guam?
No, it's not that, Senator. It's just a matter of making sure that we have advanced information. I think that's what's needed. It's probably more intelligence. And I'm not going to say that the meth is not coming down the port, because like any other port, the port is susceptible to this type of operation. It's just a matter of us finding it and having the evidence.
All right. And again, regarding the seals, that was also the issue that was raised by the AG. It sounds like Customs is informed by someone down at the port that the seals are broken. So somebody else has first eyes on it, and they're the ones informing you. And then you go down, and according to that article, it says you will look at the port police's reports, if any, and then you will do your own investigation. But who's informing you whether the seals are broken or not? If you're not the ones determining that yourselves when they're being unloaded.
Hafide, I'm Colonel Barbara Tayama, and I am the Assistant Chief overseeing the Inspection and Control Division. So we do have our maritime team that is assigned down there. However, should there be a broken seal, we will be contacted by the port during after hours.
By who?
The Port Authority.
But who there? Who finds that out first?
It would be the either the stevedore or any of the Port Authority employees down there, and they will contact the airport after hours. And so then we have a team that would go down and assess the situation. So we have Broken seals or seals that have not been attached to the container. So it would be the port. But we do have a mechanism in place where we do take accountability for the number of broken seals that we do come across.
Yeah, so in January 2025, they reported on those numbers. It was like there were 9 out of 250, it looks like, seals that were broken. And what? 150 containers a month with tampered safety seals. Of the 150, 141 were just incorrect cell numbers, and the others were actually broken, right? So Customs doesn't look at that, doesn't look at the containers when they're being unloaded or prior to being unloaded. It's only when they're unloaded down on the ground, and that's when it's reported to you. Is it reported to you always, whether the seals are broken? Do they inspect that for you?
Yes, it must be reported. So there is a difference between a broken seal and, what is it? And seal correction, that's right. Seal correction. So a seal correction is essentially maybe a digit that was off.
Right.
By
Yeah,
one
so
number.
I'm not asking about that one, only the broken ones, yeah.
Right, so it is reported to Guam Customs, and so it is a matter that we do take seriously and to look into.
All right, I guess,
And
yeah.
it is reported, it must be reported.
That's what I mean. How, Customs doesn't have a procedure itself to look at, to determine these things before anyone else?
Can I just say something there, Sandra?
Sure.
Okay, so when a container is offloaded from a vessel,
Yeah.
it's moved from the vessel, from the gantry, and then it's lowered down. Once it hits the flat, what do you call those? Flatbeds. The chassis. If the checker down at the port identifies that the seal is broken, the procedure is that checker immediately notifies the port police. The port police acknowledge the broken seal, and then from there communicates with Customs that there is a broken seal. The port police will take charge of the container itself, put it in a designated location until the officer gets down to the port to verify the seal.
All right. I guess I'm a lay person, but I'm just going to ask this. Is it possible, I think that's the speculation, right? That is it possible that before you are down there, that's when we are losing our evidence? Because it's not you who's seeing these containers when they're being put on the ground, it's someone else, and then they are waiting to report to you and then wait for your response. You don't need to answer that. That's the speculation, and I guess that was made in January 2025, so I was expecting that Customs might have changed its procedures a little bit to address that concern, that
Senator, if I
allegation.
can add to that, yes, the seal has always been an issue. We are working with federal agencies on it, to include the Coast Guard Office of the Intel side. One of the things that the Special Enforcement did was we created a new document that helps track the data so that we can look for common denominators within the containers, names, things like that, right? So we're starting to create a database to make sense of the data. We were tracking it, but now we're tracking it with additional information. So we are looking into that. I can say that we're chasing down any leads. The last operations we conducted down there, Drug Enforcement Administration was with us, GPD was out there with us, so we're working with our counterparts to tackle this drug problem.
All right, thank you. Just a couple more questions. So you mentioned in your presentation 12 trainees and then 6 in the, I think, is that the same as the 16th cycle? Or is that different? How many are in your 16th cycle? Is that 12?
12, yes, that's currently.
12, okay, so those are the same. Because the budget said 10 for FY26, is that the same? Or is that another cycle that we're going to be doing in this
I think
fiscal
for,
year?
The additional are, so when we have some trainees that had resigned, we're able to fill that. Or we have some customs officers that had left, so we funded as a trainee.
Okay, so the FY26 allowed for 10 more in FY26, and that's the cycle you're running right now?
Yeah.
And
Oh, I'm sorry, no. We have a total of 13 for 26, and then we're showing 20 because the additional are from trainees that have left since.
okay, so 20 what? 20 will be graduating?
Well, 11 now. We just got another resignation this morning, but
How many?
11 will be graduating on the
Yeah,
16th
go ahead.
cycle.
let me just clarify that.
Yeah.
The 13 right now?
12.
The 12 right
11,
now,
sorry.
that's undergoing the academy, are for the hirees from fiscal year 2025. 2025. For 2026, we have identified 20 additional
Okay.
training slots.
All right, so we put special funding for 10, but you were able
Yes.
to put 20. That's excellent then. I was going to question, you know, customs at the time, I was asking why so few? 10 was all that was put into the budget versus all the other law enforcement had much larger cycles. And they said that was your request. And so that you're able to get 20 is much better.
Yes.
So, because according to your own assessment of needs, your needs are huge.
Yes.
Like 150 more officers, and yet you're only recruiting 10 at a time or 20 now at a time is better.
Thank you.
So that, back to this rotation policy that the chair was talking about, you talked about your special enforcement divisions. There's a bunch of categories where some people get assigned, for example, the drug units, the K-9 units, biosecurity, maritime, intelligence, federal task force sections. Do you rotate that, and is there a policy on rotating them, or that's totally your discretion or the chief's discretion, Mr. Director?
Right now, it's management's decision. The managers of the respective divisions that are running this are the ones that are making that recommendation.
So they get to select who they want and keep them there for as long as they want?
No, not necessarily. They will put in their request to the chief, and of course, that has to be acknowledged by the chief, and it goes all the way out to me.
All right. Do you think that creates friction because there's different opportunities being granted to different officers, or different overtime opportunities, different training opportunities, different assignments being offered to some, but it doesn't rotate? Chief?
Okay, thank you for that question. So typically, every year we put out a letter to the field asking for letters of interest in the different areas in the agency, to include the Special Enforcement Division, the K-9, intelligence, MIT, the boat units, and everything under the sun that we have as part of our arsenal at the border. And typically, these positions, you need somebody who's been well-rounded, grounded with the baseline inspection techniques and skills as a young officer, and then as they learn what they're doing at the border, we can use them in different areas. And I understand and I appreciate the point of that you were alluding to, as far as like, when do we just keep them there forever? We've had internal discussions regarding complacency and the possibility of being susceptible to bribes and other things that may happen. And it has happened to our agency. We've had, I believe it was like 5 officers who were implicated years ago, and a few of them were arrested and went to jail. So one of the things that we can do is to ensure in moving forward that we do discuss the implementation of a policy that is reasonable. So you also have to understand that when officers go into these special fields, oftentimes they need to undergo additional training. So we can't just take an officer who's been assigned to like special investigations with the federal task force and after 2 years yank them out and move them somewhere else. We need to have a plan. What we need to do is formalize that plan, and if there's a need for us to maintain the status of the officer at that, there should be some discussion. But going back to your point, yes, we should come up with some kind of formal policy to ensure there's no complacency and that we mitigate the risk as far as susceptibility to bribes and other things that happen at the border.
Yeah, and I think that would make it feel more fair if everybody knows in advance what your policies are for doing that, perhaps. When you, that differential pay request that you made to DOA, can you be more specific? When did you make that, and when do you expect them to respond?
So the differential pay goes back to the time when we first heard that there was going to be a retention incentive for the police department. Before the retention incentive policy came out, we immediately put in a letter to the Department of Administration requesting for inclusion. And we've had memorandum going back and forth, which basically kicked the can down the road for a few years. And so moving forward, we ended up putting in another request because of our alignment initiative with the force structure to try and get some initiative as far as like or energy behind putting in a retention for officers in line with other law enforcement entities like the police department and corrections. Because if you take a look at customs, we are not a police department. We are more like the national security guardians, not just for the federal government and the homeland, but here in Guam. So it kind of is discouraging when we see people like this last cycle that graduated, not even a week later, she
Yes, I agree about the problem, but I'm just asking, so what did they say? When are they going to get back to you?
They have not said any, they have not gotten back to me. I did a follow-up, I believe, last week.
Is it the director himself you're talking to?
I am meeting with the personnel specialist, and I'm working with Mr. Lizama from the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, who is in touch with the deputy director and the personnel specialist, who is also assigned to the post commission as a lay representative for DOA.
Director, on a cabinet level, do you ever discuss this? Do you expect this to be resolved?
Let me just give you an update on that, ma'am. Thank you for the question. We did submit a letter to DOA. They responded back. Our question is the retention that officers need within the agency, and they responded back to my office, to me, stating that customs don't have a problem with retention. They have a problem with turnover. I don't know what that means, but that's the response that I got from things.
All right. Well, I would recommend you raise that and don't stop. Then just two very quick questions. You said you have the 1.3 million for the custom software. Is that the same 1.3 million from the FY25 excess that we're talking about?
Yes, if you're referring to the budget bill, the 1.3.
Yeah, but in your presentation, you said you are going forward with the custom software if the bill passes,
Yes.
because you have 1.3 from local sources.
I was assured by the front office that they will have the money.
Oh, so they
That's why
might
I
not
put
give
that
you
in.
your FY25 excess revenue, but they'll find this 1.3 million somewhere else?
That's what I was told.
And the And then the AAA changes that are ongoing, that doesn't include the passenger fee? You can't change that in there, the rules and regs?
Actually, Senator, yes, we're working on making changes to the fees. So we're working concurrently on two big projects. One is updating the rules and regulations as it relates to the passenger and air and maritime fees, and then the rules for the manifest, and a few other initiatives under two separate committees within the agency.
All right, so that might address your issue that you brought up?
Possibly.
Okay. Appreciate all of your answers and your forthrightness. Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Lai. Before we go to the Vice Speaker, I think Senator Chris has a couple follow-ups.
Actually, I just wanted to agree with the previous speaker, Senator Lai. That's correct. There was not a continuing appropriation, but that should not affect your special funds, and that should not affect what was appropriated at 1.4. The thing is the purpose of going through the lapses once again, and that's why I'm encouraging you, unless they hold you back to the ASO and to your team, spend in your fiscal year. That's the argument I'm making, is if you can't spend your money, that's where it's hard to appropriate additional revenue. Right now, I've just looked up the budget request for you this year. It is a status quo budget, with the exception of they put in a 1.8 million federal match, where that wasn't, I'll work that out with BBMR, whether or not that wasn't not included or it was part of the total. We'll see what the breakdown comes to, but you're looking at basically a status quo for next year, and then a $1.8 million match. So we'll try to figure out what that's all about in terms of, but that's where you're at. But that's why I'm saying, so if you ended up with a status quo budget, but right now you're tracking 3 million lapses, spend your money. And that's gonna make sure, and that's why I said, put it in your request for your retention plan so we can help you stabilize and then move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. So, Director, did I hear you right? You said that DOA said you didn't have a retention problem, but you had a turnover problem? Okay.
That's the response that I
That's the
got from
response.
DOA.
Okay. Is that the turnover, is that the Chamorro Pastit that they're talking about?
I couldn't figure that out.
Vice Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the panel for being here this afternoon. I heard a lot about broken seals and grants and all those things. What happens, is there a file or documentation when there's a broken seal on a container that's generated? How is that handled?
Yes, maritime, our maritime section does have a record keeping of all these broken seals, and so since last year, we've actually improved the process where not only does the Inspection and Control Division respond, but we also now collaborate closely with the Special Enforcement Division to follow through on any of these broken seals that we feel is necessary to conduct further inspection or investigations.
So is there like a, how does the file get processed to perhaps from the person that first opened the report that there's a broken seal going up the chain?
There is a form that we recently implemented in 2025 that gathers all the pertinent information that we need to conduct further investigation if warranted.
And is there anyone that is outside of the two divisions that you mentioned that is involved in handling the file?
Well, with special enforcement, we do have our task force officers assigned to these federal agencies, entities, and so if they, again, feel that it's necessary to follow through with an in-depth investigation, then we leave it up to Special Enforcement Division.
Okay, because it was brought to my attention on an email sent to my office about a file that was missing for, I think, a day and a half or so, and could not be found, and this was on a broken seal container, and then was, I guess, either the chief's office or the ASO's office, someone had the file. Do you know any recollection of that?
I am not aware of that.
I heard about that. We were looking for that file and we couldn't find it in the in its appropriate file. And then I found out that the ASO had a copy, had that file
Okay.
for some reason. I don't know why.
I had the file because I was trying to, I believe there's a law regarding establishing an account for broken seals. So I just wanted to review to see how exactly. I never got a chance to look through it because, you know, they came and they took it, right? But that's the reason why I had it.
But is that the first time you've ever had a file for a broken
Yes.
seal? So then, okay, I'm just a little bit confused here now. So you're trying to establish account. Go ahead, Chief.
So can I just go further? And because you mentioned about the accountability of that broken seal,
Right.
and that you wanted to find out whether there's a record that, you know, that tracks that thing.
Right.
And now I understand where you're coming from. When you mentioned about the broken seal, yes, there must be an official report submitted by the Maritime Office to upper management. That particular report goes all the way up to headquarters. From there, the chief acknowledged the broken seal so-called report, presents the report and advised me that there is a broken seal. Now, the next step that happens is that report is then forwarded to the case agent under fines, fees, and forfeiture that's going to follow up that particular report and takes over that particular file all the way until it's mitigated.
I see. Okay.
So that's the process.
So that's the
Everything under the broken seal must be documented. It has to go to the chain, and the only person that can change that report is the director's office, because it has to come to my office for the final outcome of the seal.
Okay.
So yes, it's properly documented. Nobody can just take that report and not forward it to the chief all the way up to the director.
Vice Speaker, just to clarify, because now we're broken seal, right?
Yeah.
There's just to let you know, there's two types of seals.
Right.
You have a shipper seal that will get damaged, that will get broken, that will have some
Right.
type of administrative error. For this case that you're talking about, this was a seal placed by us
Your
for a
custom seal.
container. Yes. That was allowed to be moved out of the port to an authorized area. And for what, I don't have the details, but the seal was removed prior to the arrival of customs officials. For those incidences, like the director mentioned, those seal violations, custom seal violations are investigated by the Fines, Fees, and Forfeiture Office, but initiated by our maritime staff who responds to those incidences.
Yeah, I'm very familiar
Yeah.
with that because you guys put your custom seal on and then a big old plaque or the sticker
Yeah.
right on the container that says "Do not open," right?
Yeah.
Customs sealed or
Yep.
inspection required prior.
Yes.
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 I'm very familiar with that.
Yes.
So that's why I'm concerned now that if that was a case where it was a custom seal that's broken, that's really serious because they just.
So that's why it's elevated to the fines, fees, forfeitures, and, you know, based on their investigation, they will share that information with the appropriate sections within our agency or elevate it even higher. Depends on the outcome of the investigation.
So then, out of all the reports, and I think this is important as well, right? All the reports has been submitted as to broken seals, and I think actually clarifying a shipper seal and a custom seal. How many custom seals have actually been broken or tampered with?
Colonel Joey Cruz.
Yes, sir.
Logistics and Support Division. I run the, I oversee the FFF fines, fees, and forfeitures. For this year, we only had one seal That was the year before, we had 9 seals that were broken. And the director took action the year before that and actually fined those companies the $25,000 for that. This year, we didn't have a fine for this year. So we've been, our protocols and working with the other sections have been working. Compliance is coming to a head. So I think we're doing pretty good this past fiscal year.
From 9 to 1, I think that's a great improvement.
Yes.
And I think perhaps, are these companies like repeatedly the same company that breaks the customs seal?
No, sir.
No? These are new companies.
Yes.
So perhaps a larger placard, a larger sticker across the doors that would say, you know, do not open, right?
Most of the time, what we're seeing is it's accidental. Companies don't, especially large corporations, they don't want to pay a $25,000 fine. So it's just about educating their staff.
Yeah. Okay.
Relate some history on the seals. This particular law with the broken seal, and we're talking about the custom seal,
Yes.
was enacted back in 1989. Since 1989, I can safely say all the way up to 2019 that there were no reports of broken seal under this particular law. When I came in 2019, I started looking into this, and from 2019 to present, have issued 9 violations and collected $200,000 on fine with this particular seal, broken seals for the agency. So I am very concerned with reports that comes to my office with respect to broken seal, and I take it seriously.
Has a fee ever been waived for a broken seal, or customs broken seal? Any of the fees ever been waived or reduced from the 25,000?
We haven't, I don't think we have ever submitted a rate to increase, you mean?
No, I'm talking about when they violate and they break the seal.
It depends on the investigation report. When fines, fees, and forfeitures submits the final report to the chief reviews the report and then submits it to my office, and then he would explain the action based on what the investigation dictates. Okay. If there is a report on broken seal, and it's because communication problems between customs and the importer, I take that into consideration, that customs did not properly do their job in notifying the importer that there is a customs seal on the container, and for them to be alerted that when that container moves from the port out to the job site, that the importer is made aware of the consequences. So with that, I will review that and get the recommendations from the investigation agents that conducting the report, and they will put their recommendation on the report.
Because I understand also that when the trucker delivers the container to the site, the trucker also notifies the person that is signing the documents that this is a custom sealed container and you must get custom clearance prior to opening, right? Am I correct?
Yes, that's also a concern, yes.
Yeah, so I guess we just gotta see how we can reevaluate that process. And like I said, maybe instead of the small 4x4 or whatever it is, we make it a 36 by 24 big old placard that says "Do not open," and avoid a hefty fine, right? So over the time that the custom seals have been broken, those fees have not been reduced or waived at all.
No.
Okay. All right. And then the other question I had was on they were talking about grants. Do you guys? We had a oversight earlier this morning, so and I asked the same question with Homeland. Have you guys returned any unexpended grants that you guys have applied for?
I will say yes from my standpoint, and the reason for that is that we had a project to procure another backscatter. That's the X-ray machine. And we routed our PO down to GSA, and GSA put up the bid for this particular machine. And I think it's 1.4? Yes, the value is 1.4. So when the bid came up, they announced the bid. The vendor that was awarded the bid wrote back to GSA and advised GSA that it's going to take 1 year to deliver the product. We notified GSA that the grant expires, I think, in 9 months. And if they don't deliver it, we cannot sign for it because that's what the law is. So what happened is that I wrote to FEMA and advised them of the situation that under this particular grant, they have awarded the bid, but the vendor could not deliver the product within 9 months. It's going to take almost a year to deliver the product. And with that respect, they told me that I cannot get into a contract with them to deliver that because the grant is going to expire. So I will safely say that 1.4 or 1.6 million of that grant has to be returned back to LICS. We did send a request, a no-cost extension request to FEMA, Region 9, and they denied our request. I did send another request to the headquarters in Washington with no response. So I'm assuming that that money needs to be returned.
Okay, and how about any grants that have been applied for but not executed because of the fault of either DOA or Customs itself? DOA as in they didn't do the documentation, or GSA didn't do the documentation on time, or Customs where you guys didn't submit for any to procure the products itself?
Not during my time, sir. Not unless you have something else.
Because
Senator, we do have some grants that are going to expire this year, so we are putting the WARFs in again. But I know last year we put in for 2 vehicles for like our HSI task force, wasn't awarded last fiscal year. So we're repeating it again for this year. So we're hoping that it gets awarded.
So where
because
are those grants at right
those
now?
are potential losses if it doesn't happen.
So where's that process at right now?
It's with GSA.
It's with GSA, and
Yeah.
when does the grants expire?
I don't have the. I believe it's the September 30th. Yeah.
September. And when was all the documentation submitted?
November, December. Yeah, last year, late last year, November, December when it opened up.
And you still haven't had any word on it from GSA?
No, nothing yet.
Nothing.
Unless the ASO can add to that.
No word yet.
No word yet. How about on procurement of software? I had another email about the procurement of software that was supposed to be procured with federal grants. However, it was not procured. The grant funding expired, and then was told that you couldn't use local funding for it.
Are you guys aware of that? Software? I'm not aware of that.
No, I'm not aware of any grant for software.
So it was a software license for 12 new computers that had already been deployed to the field nearly 2 months earlier, but no licensed software. Computer use very limited. This was January 2026, a purchase order authorizing the purchase of the software. Are we familiar with any of that?
From my recollection, I think that was the PSG grant. There was 8 computers that went down to the port, and then another 4 were at headquarters, but those were Mac computers, and I believe there was an issue with, I'm not sure if, if the software was included in with
Compatible.
it had to do with the WARF or whatever, how it was awarded. So it looked like the software wasn't included when it was procured. And that might have been a GSA thing. I don't know the specifics because I just know that there was an issue, though. You're correct, though.
Okay. And then on your fees, custom inspection fees, how are we looking on that to, are you looking to go in through the AAA process to reevaluate the fees that?
Approach for us is to go through the AAA process.
Yeah, because I know you guys haven't increased fees in such a long time.
2014, I think.
Yeah, you're still looking at $5 inspection fee, right? Yeah. And is it still the same where it comes in? I guess I'm not familiar with this part. You get a bulk shipment, right, where you have multiple shipments in under one manifest, right, or one, like that's what you call. But it's only one fee for that entire stack of bill of ladings. Is that correct?
It's a weight-based system. Previously, before the rate change, more than 15 years ago or so, it was based on individual, it was based on the bill of lading assessment, the quantity.
Yeah.
So what we moved to 15 years ago was a weight-based system,
So, because I know the carriers, right, still charge a $5 custom fee.
$8.29.
Well, $8.29? Okay.
I think, Vice Speaker, you're talking about the customs fee that they make. Again, that's I guess their prerogative as far as how much they're going to charge. But normally the customs fee is directly assessed to the importer.
To the importer, right?
Yes, the importer. If you go through a third-party carrier, then the third-party carrier may charge you. But if you were to clear it yourself, for instance, then you will pay the inspection fee, which is all weight-based, but it's different. The assessment for air cargo and
Ocean freight
are different but similar in far as methodology.
I see. Okay, but so those are the fees that you guys are looking at reevaluating again and taking a look at adjusting? All right, okay. That's the only questions I have, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the time. Thank you all of you for being here this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. One more question before I close. What is the requirement for conducting an inventory for evidence that's held at CQA, and how do we know that everything is accounted for?
What is the requirement, Senator?
Yeah, what is the requirement for conducting an inventory of the evidence that is held in CQA, and how do we know everything is accounted for?
With our PECO system, we have a computer system that we use that tells us everything that's in our inventory. Usually, an inventory is only conducted when supervisors change. When the supervisors change between those sections, then that supervisor, the PECO personnel, SCD personnel, because we have some drug evidence at SCDs, so they all come together and they do the inventory together.
Mm-hmm. And so when those evidence that you keep, I guess, and when they're destroyed, they're taken off the listing again, and how does that, because evidence is eventually destroyed, right?
Yes, PECO standards is you always have two officers.
Okay.
When you're going to destroy anything you're going to destroy. Say it's a public health issue. Public health will be there, and the two PECO officers will be there
Okay.
to sign off on that. It just depends on what the commodity is and how we're going to destroy it.
Okay.
But for the most part, right now, we're not destroying too much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. So, Mr. Director, and of course, Chief, and your management team, and for the men and women, of course, Customs and Quarantine, people of Guam, thank you very much. As we close today's oversight hearing, I want to be clear about what this was about and what it wasn't about, okay? This hearing was not about, of course, attacking the officers who wear the badge, quite the opposite. Today is about putting facts on the record so this legislature can do what it's supposed to do, identify the problems, remove the barriers, and support the men and women who protect our borders every single day. because customs and quarantine is not an abstract function of the government. It is real work in real conditions with real threats. It is the officers at the seaport inspecting containers. It is the officers at the airport screening arrivals. It is the personnel in the mail facilities intercepting contraband. It is the canine handlers and teams working long hours, often in short staff, where every gap in readiness becomes an opening. And that is why today mattered. We heard, of course, about operational bottlenecks. We heard about staffing and retention challenges, and and trying to make sense of what it was saying between you don't have a retention problem, but you have a turnover problem. Well, if you have a turnover problem, you can't retain them, right? So I guess that kind of makes sense if you look at it that way, right? Anyway. Heard about, of course, equipment that is down and takes, of course, too long to fix. We heard about procurement timelines that don't match operational reality. We heard about modernization efforts that must move faster. And we heard clearly how important coordination is with the Port Authority, the Airport Authority, Revenue and Tax, and federal partners, because none of this works when agencies operate in silos. Let me emphasize this point. This legislature has appropriate resources for customs, but the record shows a serious disconnect between funding and execution. And that disconnect cannot continue at an agency that sits in the intersection of public safety, revenue protection, and border security. So our charge today, after today, is straightforward. One, to determine whether the barriers are process, procurement, planning, or management. Second, identify what changes are needed administratively, legal, or budgetary. And third, ensure resources actually reach the field where the mission is carried out. To the officers of CQA, I want you to hear this clearly. You should not have to operate without basics. You should not be forced to make do while millions sit unspent. You should not be put in a position where personnel sacrifice is treated as a substitute for proper resourcing. This is not acceptable and it's not sustainable. And I also want to add this because what's really important, after discussions with, of course, my colleague, Senator Chris Duenas, I understand he'll be calling an oversight hearing on GSA, General Services Agency, because we heard repeatedly, of course, today, that many of the procurement bottlenecks are, of course, reoccurring. And we've heard this in numerous meetings that we've held with your management team, where specifications, processing, sourcing, and approvals can slow critical needs to a crawl. Today's hearing gave me the information I need and the intent to raise these customs-related procurement issues on the record at the upcoming oversight hearing as well. What happens next? We will be requesting the documents discussed today. We will be expecting timelines and deliverables, and we will continue working with the administration, the Department of Administration, the Attorney General's Office, the Office of Finance and Budget, so that solutions are not just talked about, but they are implemented. And after everything we've heard today, I hope that this administration finds the political will to do what is necessary, to treat border security as the priority that it must be, to execute the resources already appropriated, and to give Customs and Quarantine the tools and support they need to protect our borders. Because at the end of the day, this is about something bigger than spreadsheets or organizational charts. This is about public safety. This is about integrity in government. This is about whether we are willing to put resources where our rhetoric is. To everyone who testified, again, your management team that are here, thank you again for being on the record. The men and women in CQA, thank you for your service to our island. And the people of Guam, thank you for expecting better and demanding accountability from all our agencies. This afternoon's hearing, Customs and Quarantine Agency, is now adjourned. It is now 3:39 p.m. Thank you, and take care, and please drive carefully going back to work or back home. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, what did I say? Okay. 4:40, I'm sorry. Correction. Thank you, Sarge. Thank you.